Hello everyone, welcome back to Tesla Plays MaGMML 3. And it's on to the last of the judge commentary for Tier 2, starting with 157, Grassy Plains by Tier 8. Got 34, 2.205 difficulty, 10.8 in design, 6.6 in fun, 5.8 in creativity, 4.4 in aesthetics, 6.4 in functionality. Meg, 36 of 100. At first, this didn't strike me as great, but I was at least intrigued. Many levels use grassy plainlands for their visuals. They give levels some unique. Started some neat toys, including bounce platforms on rails. I didn't think it was neat. Some baffling pit rescue service. That doesn't always work. Pit rescue service? What? When did that happen? And these broken down crash lifts, which don't get nearly enough use for what they're capable of, to have an ineffective intro. And weirdly enough, double handed Baron works looking at a flat surface. Again, not great, but at least had a good start. Then we randomly switch to generic CFTF cave. My interest takes a no dive. So some interesting elements, such as the random Wanderbell River, and the reskinned Bombman guys at each sort of concept behind him. I think it's cute to turn the jumping sprites to an indicator of where he'll come out. Wait, what? Oh, okay. But otherwise, this loses a lot of its former charm, versus some completely boring. I wasn't sure what to expect from this, but wow, what a disappointment. I actually hated all of it, because of all the freaking instant death everywhere I went. Again, though, I have major skill issue with pretty much any game I play, so others will not have this problem, I'm sure. Shinryu, 24 of 100. Well, the first half resembles the level's namesake, at least. Not sure why it switches to a cave setting midway through, but it definitely caused some mild confusion during my first playthrough. But since it's just a minor oddity with the level's theming, the sudden shift in ideas doesn't stop at just the visuals. This whole level suffers heavily from the one-and-done problem, where a gimmick or enemy will show up for a little bit, and is never seen or heard from again for the rest of the stage. It's unfortunate, seeing as two rather interesting custom gimmicks in the first half. The deteriorating Crashman lifts, the bouncing platforms on rails. Both of these have the potential to be fun gimmicks, but they end up feeling very mishandled here. The platforming surrounding them, and the other gimmicks for that matter, is very awkward, especially in the rooms that come after the two Barons. The deteriorating platform starts to use a total of 3 times, first of which you can easily skip interacting with, while the bounce rail segment is made slightly annoying thanks to how easy it is to ricochet off the other spring spheres. Especially that first cluster. Yeah! The visual conveyance here doesn't help. Part of the platform's path doesn't have any rails to show where it leads. Second half of the stage shares most of the same issues as the first half, barring certain things, like the music not looping properly. However, it feels strangely empty by comparison. The layouts are really basic, even when doing some more intricate gimmick usage, such as the reverse gravity room or the water current segment. Granted, the first half was all that exciting either, but its challenges were at least a little bit more engaging. And frustrating. All in all, it really makes me wish the level had just focused on its 2 custom gimmicks, rather than shifting between different ones for 2 relatively short halves of a stage. Patchy, 49 of 100. Cavey caves may be included. Weird aesthetics and overall rather awkward stage to get through. The primary detriment is that the stage often fails to convey what the gimmicks will do, or actively doing to the player. People will understand why the line-guided bouncy balls sometimes bounce you and sometimes don't. Bounce you if the line is in the off state. Yeah, the fact the ball graphics don't reflect that, and the player was never introduced to it in a more controlled environment, is a really annoying experience to say the least. Same goes for the weird, almost glitch-looking Crashman platforms. Their whole concept is they just disappear if you stand on them for too long. But the graphics just don't convey what they're going to do, like the bouncy balls again. Yeah, I love dealing with airborne homing enemies as you stand on a tiny platform. Just don't fall off, forehead. This second half just feels like a completely different entry. Coupled with different theming, background music, none of the gimmicks really carry over, except the random gravity flips. The water current gimmick, again, still graphics immediately convey that the water is in fact pushing you. Took an unfair death to realize what was going on initially. The boss is just a Bomb Man reskin that has somewhat confusing sprites. The arena is smaller to make it a little bit more tricky than its original incarnation, so it's at least something. Flashman, A5, 24 of 100. I want you to play this level like I did, picking apart the details and trying to break everything. Sigh at the self-depreciating signs setting the level up for failure. Take in the unappealingly basic surroundings, and appreciate the graphical flair of the parallax clouds. Enjoy the understated soundtrack. Try not to think about the improper looping and melange of audio styles. Recognize that the rail-guided platforms have creative merit. Consider that the crumbling platforms have proper destruction animation, as well as bits of debris falling off to clearly communicate what's going on. Criticize the bouncy platform trains for their non-existent learning curve, inappropriate use of invisible rails, and failure to look like they belong against a blue background. Ponder why the level title only refers to the first half, whereas an eyebrow, the drill man switch, and the key gate, which wastes time and muddy the challenge focus. Yeah, I hated having to constantly do that. Like, the instant death segments would always be bad, but at least I wouldn't have to go through the key segment if it wasn't there. And that would make it feel a little better, at least. But having to do the key each time, yeah, really needed a checkpoint after that. Okay, where was I? Okay. Lament that most challenges are either empty and dull and egregiously unfair, and that more checkpoints are needed. Yes, exactly. Marvel at how a body of water can look perfectly still but contain rushing water. How the water abruptly disappears but its purpose has been fulfilled. Observe that the only way to determine what's the downward screen position, spumless pit, throw yourself in. Real with the boss's incomprehensible appearance, inconsistent vulnerability to magnetic shockwave. Replay the level and avoid almost every challenge with Rush Jet. Enter every transition with the intent of crashing into something on the other side. Notice the invisible solid object riding around on the moving platform tracks. See what catastrophic nonsense you can achieve with Magnet Beam when gravity is reversed. Hop on Rush Bike and push against the wind for a truly surreal experience. I considered that, but I figured I would just fall in the pit more often if I did that. There's a lot to work on for next time. Acebark, 37 of 100. How the springs on wires are taught is so poorly introduced that I almost asked the dev team if the stage had broken. Given that's the core mechanic in your opening area, not the best of starts. Still, can't go too hard on this, really, it's clearly a beginner's effort, so I'll just quickly point out what needs fixing for future stages. Several screen transitions straight up kill you if gone through wrong, either by being shunted from a wall or just plain not having a floor to stand on. Suddenly, invisible wires that you need to know exist, and let's just say the music looping in the stage was unique. Yeah, this is a level that was not really tested, now was it? And areas of the final portion of the stage often feel tacked on and are frequently just devoid of any content, or with a gimmick showing up once and never again. Stick to just a few, otherwise the level really does feel devoid of challenge. Yeah, again, I cannot relate to the judges here at all. I know they're probably much better at Mega Man than I am. As a matter of fact, I think it's a guarantee. But still, stages should be built with a mindset that there might be lesser skilled players playing them. So yeah, they might not think it's challenging, but for someone of my skill level, we most certainly do. Another recurring issue is the death pits simply aren't labeled as such via graphical changes. Even though Way Forward and Instant Death look exactly the same, you see why this is an issue. All that said, I think the idea of wire riding springs is potential, and honestly, the water rush at the end of stage is a fun idea. Maybe fun in concept, but in execution, it would just lead to me dying a whole lot. It was an attempt at a new Robot Master. You know it's cute. Somewhere where a custom object was needed, since he still has a hitbox, even when he's supposed to be a warning, I guess. Yeah, not much else to say, really. Learning stage design is a gradual process. My recommendation is, try looking at the source game some more, especially the lighter ones. See what works, learn from it. Yeah. Stupid stage. Ugh. Quint's Met Factory by Stirsoul. 34.6 out of 100. Got a 1.0 out of 5 difficulty. 10.6 in design, 7.6 in fun, 4.6 in creativity, 5.0 in aesthetics, 6.8 in functionality. Mick, 19 of 100. Oy, not a whole lot of stuff to talk about here, really. The enemy set is standard fare. 2 different mats, wall blasters, and fire tellies. Fire tellies are somewhat effective at conveyor belts, but otherwise the enemies here largely exist to be shot at, nothing else. The gimmicks aren't a whole lot better. The water platforming is nothing we haven't seen before. Outside of the fire telly combination, the conveyor belts are similarly standard. Purple acid pools that turn red are a little odd. They're probably the most interesting aspect of the level with their timing challenges. Unfortunately, the most noteworthy aspect of the level would be the broken checkpoints. At least when I was playing it. Checkpoint unlocked at the giant mech cannon is for the room below it, allowing you to skip the boss entirely with retries. More importantly, the checkpoint for the Quint training area is completely busted, taking you out of bounds and forcing you to restart the entire level. Ooh, jeez. Good thing I didn't die that often. Stumbling on that was not a pleasant experience. These have been fixed for the main... Oh, okay. These have been fixed for the main game, but it really hurt the functionality score with me. Playtest your checkpoints, folks. There's also a custom boss here. Fortunately, the Met Machine is basically just the longest, most needlessly tight metal Patron fight ever. And also it flies but it's almost dead. I'm glad there's something here, but it isn't terribly interesting. Shinryu, 26 of 100. There's not much to discuss with this level, sadly. The aesthetics from layouts and enemy placement are all pretty basic, those last two especially being a problem. Because it means you can breeze through most of the stage without even thinking. The segments involving the conveyor belts, acid droplets, and fire tellies are a step in the right direction, though. I would still consider them a bit on the easy side, but at the very least, those sections were a lot more engaging than the rest of the level. That aside, the only really notable thing here is the boss. While I think the concept of a Met producing machine is pretty sound, the execution leaves a lot to be desired. You trivialize the first phase by standing in one spot, while jumping and spamming the laser trident, while the second phase is basically a much slower moving Wily capsule that only spawns metals. All of this makes for an unfortunately easy and rather underwhelming end boss. Overall, while there's sound ideas here, with both the conveyor segments and the boss, they, along with the rest of the stage's design, could have done a lot more refinement. Patchy, 15 out of 100. Solos, Patchy review. Solos? I like the wink and smile there, it's cute. Now, this is a charming little stage. Definitely has the feeling of being someone's first stage, but there are surprisingly some good design principles in place. Like introducing each gimmick and obstacle in isolation at first, then later on trying to mix and match them. I like the cute little throwback at the end of going back to the first screen. The boss caught me by surprise too. I was really expecting a standard Quint fight, but the creator went the extra mile to try and create a new boss, which I appreciate. Obviously, though, the stage has some rough edges, such as spikes stacked on top of each other, and various screens being too spacious, with not much enemy density to fill them up. Oh, it's nice that Patchy had a good time. Flashman 85, 32 of 100. Stop right there, suspending your level design license. What happened? No power-ups? Pile of touch checkpoints instead of one normal checkpoint? Inconsistently labeled bumbless pits? Blank backgrounds, messy or repetitive tile work? Teleporters, which deploys you in midair. Connecting sections that easily could have been tied together organically. No, this isn't a professional level design contest. But these elements made the level feel especially slapdash and amateurish. The text leaves me with so many questions. Is Gwent's Met Factory really too much effort to write? If the bridge was taken out by meteor shower, where's all the debris? What is the Gwent training unit? And what is it you're doing in this elitid factory? You mean the teleporter on the left? Yeah, I was quick to notice that. I was like, what? What teleport to the right? The fact that Leisure Trident and Rushjet obliterate any sense of difficulty, signs that the challenges architecture aren't nearly complex or varied enough. Hey, I like it when I can get past obstacles with that. That makes it fun for me. If I couldn't, then that just means I'm going to be frustrated more. And I don't want to be frustrated. Not any more than I have to. Yeesh. I see the start of some good ideas. Conveyor plus fire telly, 2 directions of acid drops, see a color consistency check. The convenience of maneuvering around a broken bridge, but nothing has ever developed into anything novel or satisfying. I get no sense of purpose in the challenges, rather than fill time between the bridge gag and the boss. I love what the boss could have been, but crippling weapon vulnerabilities, a dull middle form, lack of visual polish, e.g. Quint not matching the controls like Wily and Kasak do, limitless enemy spawning, no protection from enemies while the final form powers up, almost inaudible final music, and the possibility of the final form, drifting out of the arena forever, wreck the whole thing. At least there's the Sichi, so I guess that's 1 power-up. Reasonable length, adequate checkpoint frequency, and appropriate music shows some potential. Promise me you'll plan, polish, and playtest harder next time. I'll let you have your license back. Yeah. This stage certainly had problems, I'll give him that. A lot of problems. Ace Mark, 37 of 100. The boss is kind of cute, even if the challenge is backwards, since you reduce its attacking options as you lower it down. First phase is incredibly basic, you can afford to give it different attacks as it lost parts. Overall, it just needed to do, well, more things. Even the second phase amounts to not much more than what the first phase offered. I will say, fire tellies and conveyors do end up providing the more interesting element to the stage. It's unfortunately the only combination of assets in the level. Everything else just kind of stands in the way, being a non-threat. Graphically, the stage is hideous. Sort of tiling that is used for placeholder stage layouts, rather than tiling the level to resemble an actual location. I fully recommend taking the time to see how main series stages are tiled. The most notable thing are the bricks. Bricks should be staggered rather than just stacked on top of each other. But the big issue, really, is that the stage is just dull, and predictable, and repetitive. Screens seem to be repeated ad nauseum, or at least any changes are so minor, to be hard to notice and they end up playing the same. And unfortunately the boss can wander off screen in the second phase. His respawn flags and ranges have been configured incorrectly. Therefore he can despawn, resulting in a soft lock, as there's no longer a boss to defeat. This is clearly a first effort, I think, but the reason it ends up being an unfun stage is fairly benign at least, which hey, is better than the alternatives. Look at level maps. You can find them online and with enemies and assets on the maps, from MaGMML 3 onwards. Pay attention to how the stages are put together and compare your stage. It's certainly better than the last one, but I am turning this off for now. There we go. But yeah, it was better than the last stage, but I was still annoyed at a couple of segments. Wait, what happened? Is there something up there? No. Didn't mean to talk to you. Yeah, that's odd. It's like it chirks me up there for some reason. Anyways. Ballet's Square of Doom by Madman. 34.8 out of 100, 1.8 out of 5 difficulty, 10.4 in design, 7.4 in fun, 2.6 in creativity, 4.8 in aesthetics, 9.6 out of functionality. Mick, 48 of 100. Level's actually a square. It's a little more of a rectangle, but it's overall pretty close. Aside of that neat detail, this is Well, there's not a whole lot to say about this, but I'm going to do my best. On the neat parts, makes good use of the Heli mats from Mega Man 10. Besides the one that instantly shoots you as soon as you spawn. One particular highlight? Mixing Helimat and Wall Blaster 2 with Jump Big, creating a tighter conflict than what the jumper usually enjoys. Also has some of the most challenging top fiends to Buster only no damage. Pretty sure you need the charge shot. The outside of that? The majority of this level is fairly low-key. The gimmick use is small enough, I barely remember it. Few concrete blocks that are used to get tokens. And the visual aesthetic seems to get weaker as level advances, going from a sunset cave to a generic fortress. Finally, a lot of assets here are only used once. This is fine enough for mid-bosses, but any one-shot enemies could use some additional attention. This means the difficulty curve never really goes anywhere. It's very simple from start to finish. Overall, this is inoffensive and gets a few neat moments early in the level, but as a whole, I can't say I'm sold. Not sure how I feel about that. I didn't realize that the stage was really shaped after a square, though, or a rectangle, so that's cool. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just felt like the stage was a bit obnoxious, really. Shinryu, 18 of 100. Well, the square part level's title is certainly accurate. Not sure if that's necessarily a good thing, though. Having everything condensed in such a simple path can hurt your stage a number of ways. For one, the actual level structure and progression can end up being pretty boring, as is the case here. Vertical section followed by a horizontal section, once again, then the boss. Also, if it ends up being too short, like with this level, basically gives you no room to evolve your platforming enemy challenges. It's unfortunate, since I can tell there's at least a bit of thought put into certain things here. The first and last tokens, along with the Komosaburo room, set ideas behind them. Makes it all the more frustrating to see that they are confined to such a tiny level with no room to flesh things out. Overall, I think it's safe to say the stage could have benefited from being a lot more than just a square. At least it was over quick. Patchy, 45 of 100. Square of Doom! Doom to your eardrums! Was it a very loud music initially? Otherwise, it's a rather unwreckable level with somewhat uninspired level layouts. There's a clear theming with the enemies or gimmicks chosen. Most of them just come and go. There's just this one spot where it forces rush coil usage, after the mini-boss fight with the frog, so the ladder is too high to reach. So to roll that level must strictly be beatable with Buster only. But it's weird that this one jump alone invalidates Buster only runs for leaderboards entirely. Then there's a bog standard valid fight at the end. Can't say I'm too impressed overall. What I hated is they took some of my weapons away. And some of the more useful ones too. Artificial difficulty is not fun, in my opinion. There needs to be a very good reason if you take away weapons. Flashman 85, 30 of 100. When the most creative aspect of your level is that it's purportedly shaped like a square, it's time to rethink what you're doing for this contest. Every level should have something that meaningfully and memorably sets it apart from others. I've seen projectile spam, seen rising falling platforms over boundless pits. I've seen enemy rosters full of shielded enemies that fall easily to laser trident. I've seen gimmicks used once and then immediately abandoned. I've seen ballet in a boilerplate boss chamber. I've seen levels that are functionally spotless aside from oversight or two. Notwithstanding, one screen and honestly combines a cannon with stairs, I've seen every one of these screens before. Not the exact configuration, then a configuration that captures exactly the same essence or intent. And usually I've seen them done with a better sense of theming or progression tying them together. Something similar could be said of the aesthetics, though I do like the novel and appealing combination of Woodman and Tomahawkman tiles. It certainly helped to have ceiling shadows and more cohesive atmosphere, mind you. I almost like the challenge where you use rush coil to grab a ladder, guarded by ladder press, except you could achieve the same effect with a lifting platform, which would strengthen the challenge focus, avoid forced weapon use, when there's nowhere convenient nearby to grind for refills. From the arbitrary locked weapons to the meaningless token giveaways to the ambiguous directionality, the final stretch, I don't get any sense of planning or passion or polish from this level. It's playable enough. What can I get here that I can't get better somewhere else? For example, checks the map, a level that's actually shaped like a square. It's because it's more of a rectangle, isn't it? A Spark 33 of 100. Well, level name almost gets it right. Certainly square, and there's certainly a ballade, but Doom? Not so much. I thought it was a bit difficult at times. The first token was neat, everything else seemed like a hodgepodge of random ideas thrown together without rhyme or reason. And it's pretty non-threatening. Am I like gonna be the only person that struggles with this game? The fact that the hardest part of the stage is the bit I programmed, Ballade himself, is rather telling. Also a shame the level just devolved graphically very quickly. Hammock Band is such a nice background and aesthetic. Suddenly, out of nowhere, random heart garbage Wily Castle tiles look utterly hideous. Seriously, the Wily tile sets are resulting in some really ugly looking levels in this contest. Also, I gotta ask, Ballade is the boss, right? Why in the name of Quint does the stage use Crystal Man's theme? That's just weird, dude. I didn't even notice, honestly. But yeah, forced weapon banning is not something that I hate. It's not something that I like. And I hate it when it's done just to make a stage artificially harder. Ugh. So annoying, and there were a few stages in MaGMML 2 that did that as well. Oi. Anyways, we got the last of the Tier 2 stages. Gravaqua 2.0 by Clash Crash. It got a 1.4 out of 5 difficulty, 11.4 in design, 7.8 in fun, 3.8 in creativity, 6.0 in aesthetics, 7.4 in functionality. Mick, 32 of 100. Well, credit this much. The reverse gravity jet ski was cool, otherwise this level didn't really impress. Yeah, the ski segment was the best part of the level, definitely. Mostly because of no instant death on it. The only outright bad design was the awkward gravity jumps at the start of the stage. Yeah. The rest of it was perfectly playable. However, there's also a large number of items that are just underutilized. Here is just scenery, and both sheep blocks and gravitrons are used once and never again. Even the core gimmicks, reverse gravity and water, don't really do anything interesting. Combine this with a very haphazard visual aesthetic, sees a lot of work to be made good. I could play it and enjoy parts of it, but that's about it. Shinryu, 17 of 100. So initially, this level was submitted with a minor typo. The Q and U were swapped. Now that's been probably fixed up, I could safely say the title of the stage makes a lot more sense in hindsight. As for the level itself, it has some pretty obvious issues right from the start. Everything looks messy due to the jumbled tile usage, which is only further reinforced when the water is suddenly cut off, both visually and functionally, by what's meant to be background tiles. That aside, the stage doesn't have much to offer, most of the room layouts and platforming are not that engaging. When few enemies exist, are made virtually non-threatening due to the way they're placed, which is especially true in the weight bike segment, considering you can get through it by just mashing the fire button, without ever needing to jump, along with there being several screens of nothing along the way. The weight bike section felt more like a small time waster than anything. At least it wasn't frustrating. Definitely see what the intent was here, at least. Combining gravity and water gimmicks is a fine premise. I definitely think it could be turned into an interesting level. The execution just needs a lot more polish. Patchy, 58 of 100. Huh? Is that supposed to be Leech he's speaking in? understand the title. Actually, I don't understand the title. Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, I'm assuming that's supposed to be a late way of typing, I guess, but it's another one Patchy likes, I can tell. This is a cute stage. Stage is obviously quite amateurishly made. Don't feel the creator had a lot of fun making their possibly very first MaGMML level, and it's quite a charming sight to see. But alas, I won't go easy with the score in the spirit of judging. The most prominent problem with stage is the tiling. The exact place where gravity flipping occurs is unclear. The water has no top or bottom sprites. Water ceases to exist upon reaching spots with non-watery background tiles. There's also this weird thunderbeam pickup at the initial start point that might have been left there by mistake. Most of the architecture is rather bland. Enemies just placed around without posing much threat. A lot of the enemies also seem to just show up once ever, making the roster feel arbitrary. I like the jet ski session where you go upside down. Well, it doesn't really change how it plays out if it had been right side up. It was still a pretty fun take. While Gravity Man has the addition of water physics to change up the fight, albeit not by much, Splash Woman is just standard underwater Splash Woman. You know, that's one point I didn't really think about, yeah. That was an underwater fight. I didn't have to be classy with Gravity Man. I could have just jumped up and hit him. Which honestly would have made him easier to fight. Just saying. Anyway, Slashman 85, 33 of 100. Level design is a lot like writing. There are rules about how different elements should be used, and there's a certain structure to how things should flow. I actually hate that about writing, though. People want to add too many restrictions to it. Case in point, look up something called the Bechdel test, because it actually is a very big restriction on how people believe females should be written. I'm not saying it's necessarily wrong, but adding restrictions always seems like a bad idea, since it gets in the way of creativity. And I don't really believe in it, I just believe writers should be thoughtful about how the things they write about could be underutilized. But actually adding restrictions seems like a bad idea all around. But anyways, moving on. It's important to go back and check your work for any errors, ideally getting other people to tell you if what you've crafted makes sense. All of this is to ensure that your ideas are being communicated clearly. Because if you don't connect with your audience, then the whole thing falls apart. Both the design and the writing of this level fail to connect with me. Ideas never really develop into anything. Challenges tend to assume the player is already familiar with the enemies and gimmicks, and needs a learning curve. They either repeat themselves, water spouts plus spikes, or show some promise before being promptly forgotten. E.g. Sniper Joe. Which is a shame because on an individual basis, the challenges aren't bad in concept or design. The Vita plus Wave Bike? Kinda fun. I don't understand the dialogue boxes, they don't tie in with an overarching narrative. This level doesn't need a navigator. Did I miss that? I don't remember there being many of those. Celia's secret would actually be funnier without the dialogue box. Oh, the secret path. Okay. I didn't find the secret path, even with the tracker. Interesting, okay. Okay. The Sidley's secret would actually be funnier without the dialogue box, and the text is so riddled with spelling grammar problems that the whole level feels less professional by association. Even level title looks like a typo. Other observations. The graphics lack any style, but they're functional, save for background arrows that don't precisely line up with where the gravity flips occur. Checkpoint placement is acceptable. Hiding a token in front of the energy element is pointless. Maybe work for it. Or, you know, don't. I'd be fine with just being handed to me. Level allows for so much needless backtracking that I once played it in reverse. That was more satisfying than progressing forward. This level could have been a topsy-turvy collision of water gimmicks with Gravity Man assets and gravity gimmicks with Splash Woman assets. As it stands, it's more like a playable brainstorming session. And last but not least, a Spark 40F100. The idea behind combining these two Robot Master stages was one with a lot of potential, but the end result is a watered-down version of both stages. Pun not intended. Or was it? Dun dun dun. The one area of the level could have really shined, with the weight bike and gravity gimmicks combined, but it fell flatter than a steamroller pancake. It being easier than the already easy original Whiteback section from Mega Man 5, and a few gravity flips changed nothing but the gameplay whatsoever, aside from making the fish enemy completely useless. Throughout the level, there were a lot of empty screens filled with enemies that only served as decoration. The few enemies and gimmicks that ended up in the player's way only really showed up once, or were never introduced well. The one exception was the repeating water geyser, which was an identical challenge through the whole room. The weight bike and gravity gimmicks are not challenges by themselves, instead need proper enemy and architecture layout to complement them. The level rarely did this at all, leading to a stage that could be played on autopilot. Failing to reuse any ideas meant the level felt completely unfocused, even though you were constantly reusing the gravity and water features. The graphics aren't badly tiled, but the transitions between water and non-water features were non-existent, made a few of the challenges quite confusing to look at. It also had odd holes in the water, with very out-placed backgrounds. So, this stage wasn't too bad. I think there were a couple moments that annoyed me, but it wasn't too bad overall, though. But man, these 4 stages put together... Oh, such a frustrating time for me. Oh my god. I hope we don't run into too much of that in the future, let me just say. Because there's just so much. So much instant death. Ugh. Good lord. So, the boss over here... I didn't really get much of a satisfying battle from him. He was just using various attacks with the garbage that he was recycling or whatever, or collecting, and that's about it. Now, in the stage on the other side there, the one that's based on Warhammer 4K or whatever, yeah, a couple of those moments just got really frustrating. Specifically because you had to act in like a millisecond to keep from getting spiked. I did not like that. But that's all for Tier 2, it looks like. Alright. Cool. So that's 2 tiers down. Like I said, I'm going to be waiting on the arena for a bit, because it's an arena, you fight a bunch of battles all in a row, and I feel unprepared for that, let's just say. Like, I think that I would need more upgrades, certainly, before I would survive well in there. I'm just saying. Especially if it's like the arenas from MaGMML 2, then yeah, I'm definitely gonna need more to work with. Okay. So, yeah, that'll be all for this one. Well, there is one thing I can talk about. No one's really, critiqued me on this yet. However, I am nervous that the way I am choosing to play the game feels like it's copying Raw Mithril a little bit too much. I'm not trying to do it intentionally, but based on how I usually play these games, it is starting to look like that. Like, he goes and he changes out costumes every so often, he makes separate videos about the judge reviews, and he also tends to stick to 3 to 4 stages of video, in many cases. You know, unless he's one more staged or whatever. I don't want to feel like I am being a carbon copy of him, but I really don't know how to fix that problem. because I don't want to keep the judge reviews in my actual sessions. I feel it would break the pacing way too much if I did that. I don't know. I just don't know. Well, that's all I can say for now. Thank you guys for watching. I will talk to you later. See ya.